we're both old enough to remember Aspiration. And by the way, two people really happy, Kawhi Leonard and Steve Ballmer. Yeah. Boy, did that come off the front page of the NBA sites in a hurry.
Welcome to Wait, What? Sports Biz Chat with DP and McGee, the podcast that takes an often irreverent, sometimes cynical, and on occasion a serious look at the business of sports. I'm your co-host, 𝘕𝘲𝘁𝗏.
And I'm Tim McGee.
Well, by our next show, Tim, both NASCAR and MLB will have crowned their 2025 champions, and there's certainly no shortages of sports business stories within those sports. But I have a sneaking suspicion what you may want to start with today. But if you give me a second, I'm going to open my 𝘕𝘁𝗄𝘗 app and see if there's a futures market for McGee's opening topics. There's not, but I'm going to work on that because I think we could make some book on that. Anyway, Tim, what's on your mind?
So you could, I guess, say you bet you know what I'm going to talk about. We have been talking about this for 2 years, at least, on this show. And every time there's been a situation that's arisen where a player has either been accused of or been punished for violating his, and then up to this point it has always been his league's rules regarding gambling. And we always said, I think we were in agreement every time, that it wasn't the scandal that we both expected and that I predicted. But I think what happened last week really changes that, because for those of you who may not know what we're talking about, and I'm sure most of our listeners do, the FBI in Eastern District of New York handed up indictments against a number of reputed organized crime members, as well as 3 people associated with the NBA. Hall of Famer and Portland Trailblazer coach Chauncey Billups, former player and former assistant coach Damon Jones, and current Miami Heat player Terry Rozier. In the case of Rozier, he was accused of letting people know that he was going to take himself out of a game, thereby making these under prop bets virtually a lock. Damon Jones was accused of being involved in that scheme, but Damon Jones was also accused of being involved in an illegal poker game, which was some real James Bond shit, if you think about it. According to the indictment, guys like Damon Jones, Chauncey Billups, and other celebrities were enticed to play in an illegal poker game. They were the lures for what the organized crime people apparently called the fish, to play in these games. But these games were fixed. There were X-ray cameras, there were glasses that people wore. Like I said, some real James Bond stuff going on there. And obviously Terry Rozier and Chauncey Billups were immediately suspended from their respective teams. I'm reading more recently that Terry Rozier had a huge, multi-million-dollar lien or tax bill that he had to pay. And we've talked about this. I mean, you go back to 2014, 11 years ago, when Adam Silver wrote that famous op-ed piece advocating for legalized sports betting in professional sports. He said money would not be an issue with these guys. And I believe me or not, I said to myself at that time, that's ridiculous. That does not always drive people's behavior. But in the case of Terry Rozier, it may very well have. But the last thing I'll say, and then I'll let you get a word in edgewise, is that over the course of his career, Chauncey Billups made something like $107 million and counting, because he's still coaching. And Terry Rozier has made, I think, $170 million over the course of his contracts. So I don't think money is necessarily the driver to this.
Well, in the case of the illegal gambling games, I mean, this is mob stuff, right?
Which may very well be part of their defense, that they didn't really have it.
And it could be, but that's what, and you said that right at the very beginning when the ruling came down from the Supreme Court. You made that comment. write about that, or you kind of called out Commissioner Silver on that. But in addition to the money, there is the compromising information, whatever that can mean, and this has come to light. Now, the reality is the NBA is looking horrible on this because a lot of these scandals seem to be coming from the NBA. It can't be the only professional sports league where there is going to be an issue. And let's face it, if Piff was more interested in basketball than it was in golf, Phil Mickelson might have had to go to do these type of games instead of getting the payout that he did when he went to live. Not casting aspersions there, but I think most people will say now that was what really salvaged Phil. Anyway, back to this. Yes, you are right. This is the one that rises to that. The question is it as big as it certainly seems? I mean, we had the head of the FBI coming out in his FBI jacket, with local people as well, talking about these indictments, which obviously seem very serious, and I think they are. But two seemingly unrelated things that have this Damon Jones tie, which I think is so bizarre, by the way. I mean, he wins the award for being able. I mean, if he's involved in both of these, he's in others.
Right, he's the 𝘮𝘰𝗍𝘃𝗍 of betting scandals.
And Damon Jones, a journeyman player, more known because of what? Because he's friends with LeBron, or was friends with LeBron, whatever that may be. And one of the things on the providing information to help with these, kind of skew these prop bet situations was something about LeBron not playing in a given day that he would know. While Adam Silver may have been right in this regard, that our players make too much money, but what he should have said is they shouldn't be tempted by this thing on grounds of money. But money and competition are crazy things. Unfortunately, I think it will potentially get worse. I think it will get worse before it gets better because things are moving too fast. These leagues have all accepted the money from all the sports books, and now we hear, and I referenced 𝘕𝘁𝗁 in my opening, that the NHL is doing a formal deal with these prediction markets, which are a little bit different than the sports betting sites. And I honestly think that they're scary. People often know them about political campaigns and betting on futures, right? Betting on future things. Mm-hmm. And past guest 𝘕𝘁𝗁 𝗢𝘃 came out just this week and announced how excited he is about this deal. The Gaming Association has come out aggressively in trying to tell the leagues not to do this because they say they're not regulated, even though these sites are claiming that they're regulated. But they're moving, it's all moving too fast for, I think, Congress to catch up. Congress isn't even in session right now, so who knows, how long this stuff is going to take. But it's crazy. And another past guest, Steve Margosian, said to me a long time ago when he was still at NBC, we are going to see so many things happen because of this that are going to be negative outcomes from gambling. And, I think we have to accept the fact that it's a big driver of money for the leagues, teams, etc. And money is required to make this, our lives happen, our work happen, delivering the sports to the fans. But he was right.
Yeah, we don't know what vetting process the NHL went through before they, selected to go with this partnership. But we do know that the American Gaming Association came out in very strong terms with their concerns about these prediction markets. You and I are old enough to remember Sponge Tech. We're old enough to remember Enron and the naming rights deal at the ballpark in Houston. We're both old enough to remember Aspiration. And by the way, two people really happy, Kawhi Leonard and Steve Ballmer. Yeah. Boy, did that come off the front page of the NBA sites in a hurry. But the sponsorship landscape has been littered with companies that were not what they appear to be. Now, I got a note from a good friend of mine, David Koppelman at Playfly Sports, and he said, simple ban. This text was simple, ban under prop bets. And it's interesting. That doesn't eliminate the whole problem, but it certainly eliminates a big part of it. Because if you eliminate under prop bets, you don't have guys like Terry Rozier or Jonte Parker removing themselves from a game 5 minutes in.
I would tend to agree with you. I think it would solve a lot of things. And Adam Silver did come out very recently and talk about like toning down the prop bet stuff. I don't know what teeth that has, but that's where people are getting hooked. And that's where these young people, particularly college students, and then going back to the decision that was made recently about allowing college athletes to be able to bet on pro sports. Now, because of this scandal, I think they've reeled the implementation of that back, waiting for things to die down, so then they'll just push it through. But that's what gets people hooked. I don't think either of us are sports bettors.
No, I'm not.
But I know people that are, and they love it. And they're taking all the free bets and they're betting across multiple sites. And now with these predictive sites, adding more sports, because that's where, pardon the pun, but the future is on that. It's
the more sports you can bet on, the more likelihood there is to be a scandal.
Absolutely.
Because nefarious forces will find a way to get to players, to get to officials, perhaps. And I don't know what it does by removing under prop bets. At first blush, it looks fine. Maybe you eliminate prop bets on individual players, and they have to be team performances,
right?
In order to do that. I don't bet, right? And I don't judge people who do, because Lord knows I have my own vices, right? But what I will say is that there has been mounting evidence. The more people gamble, the more problem gamblers they are, that gamblers are over-indexed in terms of things like falling behind on credit card bills and mortgages and having issues with their credit scores and things like that. So there are consequences to betting. And I'm sure there are a lot of people out there who say, well, that's not me. And many of those people might be right, but some of those people might be in denial. I'm always reminded, I don't bet because there is a stereotype that the Scottish people are the cheapest people on the planet, and I am part Scottish, and I think that's what leads me to not bet. But I am always reminded of what my dear friend Sean Morrissey said as we were getting ready to go out to Las Vegas for some Kia sales meetings, and somebody said, "Sean, do you like to gamble?" And he said, "Only with my health."
Yeah.
And I just, that's me at this point in my life. That's the only thing I'm gambling on.
Well, you shouldn't gamble on that, Tim. We want you around for a while. It's funny because you on the prop bets, so say prop bets went away tomorrow. Mm-hmm. Do we just go back to old-fashioned point shaving, like the old school way we remembered it, the 8 men out type of thing? The Boston College point shaving scandal that we recall from years ago.
Beauty, which predates us.
Yeah.
In New York City.
So yeah, people are going to find a way to cheat when it comes to money or other things. We know that. And I'm not saying that they're wrong, but I guess I'm a little tired of the argument that, well, it's good that it's all regulated because we have this data and we're able to see it. And I suppose there's some truth to that. But to me, that just puts more and more power into the hands of the bookmakers, of the the gambling houses, the sports betting houses. And now I know that they're out aggressively trying to say that they're fully regulated, but if the American Gaming Association is saying that they are insufficiently regulated, I think they'd know a little about those businesses. And their quote is insufficiently regulated and devoid of the consumer and integrity protections that define legal sports betting. That seems to be a pretty strong statement by them. And you mentioned the vetting process. We don't know it all, but Keith did an interview on this, and he talked about seeing it and being so wowed because the guys came in and gave a big pitch. I don't know. They're the first ones. The money just started flowing. We've seen how much these, the FanDuels and DraftKings, etc., MGM Bet.
Yep, I mean
ESPN bet now, and then there's that side of it. Sorry, right. I'm jumping around. I'm bopping around like crazy here, but ESPN has a betting operation now.
Yeah, and the sports books spent over $52 million last year in advertising on it during NBA broadcasts, which is more than double it than it was just 2 years prior. I think you will agree that it's not going anywhere, correct?
Right.
That we're not. Yeah.
We're not cleaning it all up and
the leagues are not going to
backwards.
walk away from this money.
No. Honestly, I don't know what the actual I don't know if fans or people that bet actually. I don't even know if they care. Are they addicted to? And I'm not saying addicted because that's a strong word, but do they do it for the rush? You know, Michael Jordan used to always say, if there's nothing on it, what's the competition? I never got that, by the way. I'm going to sound weird, though, because people that bet always say that's where the rush is. That's the competition. I never got that. I'm going to drop a weird name. This is going to sound like weird. This is years and years ago. I'm on a boat. Speaking of mob families, no, I didn't say that. I'm out on a boat somewhere. I can't even remember where, but it was with Brian France, Paul Brooks, Brad Daugherty.
Geez, you were dropping some names.
It reminds me of the scene from Step Brothers when Adam Scott's character goes, and he goes, "Oh, you were out with Mark Cuban." He goes, "It wasn't just the cubes. It was Daughtry." Anyway, so I was out with the basketball player, Brad Daugherty, and we get in a poker game. I'm playing poker with Brad Daugherty. First bet, he just puts down a lot of money, and I'm out. I mean, I'm out. So every hand, I'm just anteing and out. So I don't know where I was going with that, but money, the rush of betting, to me, is more of a weird betting thing. Like it's its own addiction, if you will. It's its own rush. I never had that. To me, sports was always about competition. I wanted to win because I wanted to win.
There is I think it might be dopamine that is released, or adrenaline. There is what is it? Endorphins that are released when you gamble. The fear of losing always overshadowed the thrill of potentially winning, and that's why I didn't bet. That's why I don't bet.
You know, rather than get someone in we would obviously be interested in getting someone from the Gaming Association or various other bets, and we've talked betting on this a lot. We had 𝘮𝘲𝘀𝗏 on some years ago on the show to talk simple bet. Maybe we got to get someone from that side of the business that understands the psychology of that. That might be an interesting guest. And
I'm sure there is a ton of psychology that goes into it in terms of the way they present the opportunities, the way that they allow you to, get free bets based on your betting activity. It's all about getting you in and more, gambling more and more. And then at some point, it's incumbent upon the gambler to determine what is a safe level of activity, when have they gone too far. And if it's an addiction, that's very difficult for somebody with an addiction to do, is to self-regulate. That's the whole idea of an addiction, right? Is you can't self-regulate.
Well, and then part of the deals with all the leagues is that these companies have to do their, PSAs about gambling and add that on. Gambling problem, which to me doesn't do anything. It just, it's checking the box of doing what they have to do on that. And hopefully they do put some money into that. But they're definitely trying to get you hooked on it for sure. By the way, we should feel good because Congress has at least requested to have Adam Silver come in and the NBA talk about stuff. So we figure they'll be all over it and on top of it. I'm sure
soon. Ted Cruz, who chairs that committee, won't grandstand at all.
Did you look at the name of that committee, by the way?
It's
like
ridiculous.
The Committee on Commerce, Transportation, and then something else it seemed totally unrelated. I can't even remember what it was. But
I love Al Franken's line about Ted Cruz.
Oh, yeah.
He said, I like Ted Cruz more than my Senate colleagues, and I hate Ted Cruz. Apparently not well liked.
I do want to say something about, I saw a quote from Jaylen Brown, who plays with the Celtics. And this isn't just because we had Ted Dalton on last week's show. He had I thought was a great comment, because some players are coming out and going, it's really not that big of a problem. He had a quote saying that I think a lot more could have been done to help players and prepare players, but even in the aftermath, little care or attention to detail goes into it. Now he's a high-ranking person in the Players Association,
right?
And I think he has. If you've ever watched Jaylen Brown play, he's just like a floor leader, right? Like he's got leadership qualities out the ass. this guy. I was happy to see him come out and kind of make that comment that the league needs to do more to help its players, because you see one person doing it. I got a chance to make some extra money by just giving information or getting out of a game early. I mean,
yeah, we don't know who Terry Rozier talked to on his team or other players in the league, but things like that tend to get passed around. And to your point, and what I would say is, if there is one player, and there is one player right now who is accused, and there is another player who was thrown out of the league, Jonte Parker, then that's two players too many.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's not a question of what's an acceptable number of players compromising the integrity of the game and the sport. It's how do you prevent a single player from compromising the integrity of the game and the sport.
Yeah. All right. Anything else on this topic?
No, I think we've covered it. I'm sure we will be talking about it more. This is not a prediction, but this is a thought that I don't think we've seen the end of the players' involvement in this. We're going to hear more, and we'll see. We'll see. I think I read somewhere there was something like 30 unnamed people in the indictment. So we don't know if those people were witnesses or involved. But I find it hard to believe that only one current player, is involved.
Yeah.
That for me is difficult to.
So I want to move over to talk World Series and Major League Baseball. And I mean, I didn't even stay up, and I think you admitted to me that you didn't stay up, to this 18-inning masterpiece.
52 a.m. Eastern time. That's I'm in double secret REM sleep at that point.
We're now at 2-2 in this series. It'll close out before our next show, as I mentioned. I saw the most bizarre coincidence. I don't know if you saw this. Yeah. There have been 2 World Series games that have gone 18 innings.
I know where you're going with this, please.
Yeah. And Brad Paisley sang the national anthem in both of those?
That's wild.
That's the wildest coincidence, or maybe not, ever.
Was there a prop bet on how long his performance of the
I'm sure there
national
was.
anthem?
I mean, well, it's just there's prop bets on everything. By
True.
the way, the Blue Jays just don't back down. I mean, these are 2 really good baseball teams, and last night's game, we're recording this on a Wednesday. Shohei Ohtani at least looked semi-human in that Vlad hits a home run on him early. He stays in the game. He pitches okay, but he obviously ended up getting the loss, and he struck out, which wasn't happening. I mean, this guy was just getting his bat on the ball like nobody's business. And there's something I did want to talk about Shohei a little bit, because there's something about him that makes his amazing feats to me more special, and why I think it matters for the growth of the game, not just here in the States, but obviously worldwide, because of his following around the world, and certainly in Japan. There's something about the way he plays the game that is so childlike. And it's not just his enthusiasm for the game and how he's cheering on all his teammates. That generally happens, and these 2 teams are just solid teams that seem to really love playing with each other. But there's something about the way he pitches and the way he bats that looks unlike most of the overly coached travel baseball players that you get out of this country now, that are everything is so dialed in with the way the knob angle is and all these things. He just goes out and swings the bat like a complete natural athlete. He throws the ball. 7 pitches, I think he has, all of them very effective. But he doesn't look like he's overpowering when the ball comes out of his hand like some. He just has a brain and a body and the training and the instincts that just make him such a joy to watch play over all these, and he's so polite, he's always talking to the ump and stuff. So anyway, he's such a model of where I think the league wants to be on its international scale, and so I'm just like a massive fan, if you couldn't tell.
No, he looks like an old school ball player.
Yeah.
If he shakes off his catcher, which he did on several occasions last night, he does it very quickly. and then he gets in his windup and he pitches. He gets the ball back. He gets up and when he's up at bat, he doesn't, like you say, he doesn't mess with his batting gloves, his elbow pad. He gets up there. He's got that very unique batting style where he's very upright, and he's ready to go. And he's just a tremendous ball player. But Vladimir Guerrero Jr., if Ohtani casts a huge shadow, Guerrero stays outside it.
I feel almost the same way about him. Now, he's obviously from amazing pedigree, but he plays the game with such heart and joy, and he looks like he loves everybody around him. And he's very similar in that vein. He stepped up, and that pitch he hit last night for a home run didn't seem like that bad of a pitch to me. I guess he missed it a little bit with where he wanted to go, and you're pitching to one of the best hitters in the game, so you can't do that. But to have these two guys that are so illustrative of exactly what the joy of baseball should be, to what you and I fell in love with the game at, both as kids playing it and then being fans of it, they're both that kind of throwback, I think. I mean, they celebrate a little more than the old school people do it, but they still just play the game with just a sheer joy, and are both so gifted, and they seem to appreciate the game so much.
And that play that Guerrero made the other night, not last night's game, but Monday night's game, when it was a fielder's choice, and then he just gunned the ball across the infield, and they got the guy at third base. It's just again, he's a multi-dimensional player. He's not just a slugger.
We're seeing defensive plays like some unbelievable throws, just really great players playing this game right now. And so, these, other than the length of the game on Monday night, this has been unbelievable. Now, I have the stats on viewership for the first two games. In Canada, 6.8 million, most viewed Blue Jays games in history. In Japan, 10.7 million, most viewed World Series ever. No surprise. 12.6 million in the U.S. over the first two games, which doesn't include the marathon game. And that's down from last year. I'm not looking at what percentage it is down. That's kind of disappointing, because I think this is
13. It was down 13%, but you have to understand that there's only one meter market, Nielsen market, in this World Series.
True. I would hope that those that love sport would get on the bandwagon, and maybe they did after hearing the news of Game 3, and maybe watch it. It's not for us to cheerlead viewership, but
with any series, the longer it goes, the higher the ratings.
But there are things we watch that are special, right? We know it. We know it's special. I feel like this is something pretty special. Getting to see someone of Ohtani, who we said could go down as the greatest player ever, and he certainly put his hat in the ring for that. And then on the flip side of that, someone as good as Vlad Jr. Just I think people should watch this. I encourage everybody to tune in if they're not. There's plenty of time to catch up on the NHL and NBA action. Sorry, friends at those leagues, but
you don't always have to choose. I was flipping back and forth between the Knicks game and the World Series last night.
Well, obviously, I'm just saying. I saw something from Stan Kasten, the president and CEO of the Dodgers, who kind of fired a little bit of a defense, because, Manfred has said that they're hoping to negotiate this in the offseason, like negotiate the CBA that doesn't end until the end of next year, get that started. And Kasten, as much as they spend, because they're the top spender, they're the second top highest spender.
Yeah. Behind the Mets, is that he feels that they have been good stewards of the game, because look what they've brought. Look at what they've done to bring players in, the players they've signed, the kind of quality of play, and they do have a following, which is kind of back to the point about only one media market. That may be true, and I guess a lot of people really do hate the Dodgers. I'm not one of them, by the way. Anyway, I thought that's at least a good argument. We've always brought attention to the game. They bring attention to the game with what they do. Now, I'm not saying things shouldn't be balanced out, but anyway. Oh, I have to say, in the marathon game on Monday night, Clayton Kershaw has to come in and pitch, probably the last time he ever pitches, gets the job done. And there's a flash in the stands to Sandy Koufax.
Now, Sandy Koufax was now I'm dating myself a little. I'm not dating myself because he was obviously on with his career when I first knew, but he was like the first person I knew of greatness of in baseball, Sandy Koufax, because I was born in L.A. and it was actually my first love was the Dodgers.
Stayed the whole game and actually went to the clubhouse after the game to congratulate. Yeah, what's his name? Klein? What's that?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, which was an amazing performance by him, by the way. But he looked pretty good too.
Yeah.
Anyway, just
good clean living for the kid from Brooklyn.
Yeah, so great. Anyway, I don't think Kasten is necessarily off in saying that. I think they pay a ton in luxury tax because of what they spend, but they put a hell of a product on, and they obviously are delivering because they went over 4 million fans this year. All right. Before we take a break, what else you got?
Well, I think big news coming out of Major League Soccer as they're starting their playoffs now. Lionel Messi has signed for 3 more years through the 2028 season. He's 38 years old now, so he'll be 40 when that contract is over. It's going to be interesting to see. They won their first match in the playoffs against Nashville. But Luis Suarez, his deal is up at the end of this season. Alba and Sergio Busquets have already announced they're going to be retiring. So not surprisingly, Messi came out and said in an interview yesterday or the day before that he thinks MLS should do more to free up money to bring in international stars. I couldn't agree more because when you look at the players that have come over, very few have come over in the peak of their career or the ascendancy of their career. Going back to Beckham, Rooney, Thierry Henry, Blanco with Chicago, more recently, obviously, the big three with Miami. They're coming in at the end of their career. And I think in order to get players, if you want to be the best league in the world in terms of not franchise valuation, but play on the pitch, you've got to have the best players in the world, and Major League Soccer just doesn't right now. It doesn't have the best.
They're a long way away from that.
Still,
but they can make strides.
Certainly, if as everybody believes they go to an international calendar after next season, that will help because it will align them with the transfer windows with the rest of the global football world. But it really comes down to money and how much money is the league willing to allow ownership to put into their players. Yeah.
Well, in related story to me anyway is that U.S. Soccer announced record revenue, $263 million during 2025, 37% increase over last year. And this obviously has to do with people getting excited, I think, about the lead up running into World Cup. It's certainly a good sign, and the momentum that's being generated from our past guest David Wright and the team there has just been impressive. And hopefully that speaks to the interest and investment in U.S. based football.
Can I just say, David Wright is an absolute killer when it comes to generating revenue. I mean, he's got to be, I mean, he's unbelievable. I don't know if there's a Hall of Fame for sports sales guys, but he's well on his way. Whether it was at Major League Soccer where he worked very closely with Kathy Carter and brought in a ton of new sponsors, not the least of which was my former employer, AT&T, and then his work at minor league baseball, and now what he's doing at U.S. Soccer. He's unbelievable.
Yeah, he comes across as such a humble guy and a very, very genuine, very open and nice guy. I mean, I really enjoyed that conversation we had with him.
He's one of the most thoughtful people I've ever come across in this industry. Nothing that comes out of his mouth isn't well thought out, which probably is a big part of his success in sales as well.
I'm going to self-correct right away. It was not a record this year, but it was the highest haul since 2017, which was the year it hosted Copa America Centenario. So they had a lot of attention there. So I think we can expect maybe next year to be a pretty big haul as well. With World Cup being on. So
and just to close the loop real quick, I mean, I don't want to make it seem like Major League Soccer hasn't been successful, right? Just signing Messi to another deal where he could have very easily gone over to Saudi Arabia, obviously, is a big coup for the league. But he also, but the league also reported that they have a 29% growth in viewership year over year between last year's regular season and this year's regular season. So people are watching. Interest. There is increased interest, obviously, in the league. But as we ramp up to the World Cup next year, I think that's only going to grow. And I've been on calls and with the league, and they have a very big plan to lean into the World coming here for World Cup. And then, what's already been publicly announced coming out of the World Cup next year, they'll actually be having their All-Star game at the end of July in Charlotte at Bank of America Stadium. So I think you will see a nice bump in interest in soccer here in the United States.
Yeah. Before we go to break, the only other thing I want to bring up is a story that you have liked following over the last few weeks, and that is the college coach firings.
Brian Kelly certainly has the luck of the Irish.
$54 million, which is like, there was no doubt when he took that job at LSU that he was going to get fired and it was going to be a big buyout. I think we all could have predicted that. So the total now is reportedly $169 million in FBS coaches being bought out of their contracts this year.
So what I will say is a couple things on this, because I was going to bring this up. I'm glad you did. Thank you. Number one, they were having conversations at the stadium during the game about relieving him of his duties. Now, Texas A&M is a really good team. It's not like they lost to Southwest Louisiana State. They lost to one of the best teams in the country, number one. Number two, the governor got involved. Apparently, there's no regent. There's no chancellor. Right now, that role is vacant in the Louisiana State University system. But the governor was involved. So you tell you how big stakes this has become. But the last thing I want to say is this is not sustainable. This is not a smart business model. This is just, you cannot be spending that kind of money and expect to have a viable economic model for your college football program.
One of the things that happens at these big schools is not just the alumni base. The alumni base, grassroots level, is part of it. But then there are the deep-pocketed alum, the boosters, that definitely have a play. They're in the ear of the AD. They're in the ear of the president. Mm-hmm. I'm not fabricating that this happens. It happens.
Of course.
And I honestly don't know if this is not only, I don't know if it's legal, I don't know if it's kosher, but they're putting up some of the money.
Absolutely.
I mean, they're just putting up the money. So it's not coming, it shouldn't be coming from coffers of the state. I mean, these guys are already the highest paid employees within the state. Want to venture a guess of the record for buyout? Because I think this guy should be on commercials because of this.
No, I don't want to venture a guess.
Jimbo Fisher, $76 million.
That's right.
Texas A&M. I mean, it should be like remember those old ads? You remember me? Do you know me? You don't know my, and I was the one with the biggest buyout. I mean, not that Jimbo Fisher wasn't a big-time coach, obviously he was, but $76 million at Texas A&M buyout. Anyway.
Yeah.
It's good work to get fired from if you got that contract.
No kidding.
Anything else before we take a quick break?
I think that's hit on it all. We covered a lot for not having guests today.
Yeah. All right. We'll be right back.
We are back. And so now's the time in the show where we take a look forward. David, we've had such amazing guests over the last several months that I was just conditioned. I was going to say thank you to our non-existent guest. But what's on your mind? What are you looking forward to?
A few things. One is the TCS New York City Marathon is this weekend, which is the last of the Abbott Marathon majors for this year. We actually were hoping to have somebody on this week talk about that, and hopefully down the road we will. But I'm going to be in Chicago actually for Scarlett's second birthday. But I always do love that weekend in New York, and I think it's kind of a cool one. So best to everyone running.
Including my niece, Elizabeth Hartman. She was recently
awesome.
made partner at KPMG, and she's going to be running in at least her second, if not third, New York City Marathon.
That's great. I do want to give a shout out to a former New York Jets offensive lineman, Nick Mangold. And part of the reason I want to shout out, first of all, he was, from all indications, one of these super well-liked joie de vivre guys.
Mm-hmm.
I only met him once, and he was wonderful. But he was really close to a past guest of ours, Russ Spielman. And I reached out to Russ just to say sorry about the loss because of the friendship. And he's just gutted by this and how brutal. 41 years old. I mean, just too young. But nice to see all the great, remembrances. And I think obviously you being a Jets fan as you are, I'm sure have some thoughts on that.
He was a great player. By all accounts, a great person. He settled here in New Jersey, pretty much halfway between where I'm sitting right now and the Jets practice facilities. I met him once as well. One of my clients used him for a personal appearance and brand ambassador deal, and Russ obviously brokered that, but he couldn't have been kinder to my client and the people he interacted with. Like you said, 41 years old, so sad. He just went public a few weeks ago, trying to get a kidney transplant, and unfortunately was not able to secure a new kidney before he passed away. But he will be fondly remembered by New York Jets fans. I dare say that he will probably wind up in the Hall of Fame. I'm sorry to see that he won't be around to be celebrated like that. But anything else that you
I mean, a couple other things. The WNBA CBA expires on Friday. They have had some conversations in a back and forth, but apparently they're still very far apart. My hope is, and I guess my expectation has been, that they're going to at least extend it so they can continue to talk instead of having some sort of either lockout or strike. So we will see on that. I do want to, I'm hoping that somewhere down the road, because we've tried and haven't been happy with the result, but have someone on from the Big 12 to explain their new logo, because they just rebranded, so it's kind of a classic rebrand. I shouldn't enjoy seeing people, get torpedoed because of rebrands, because sometimes it goes over the top, as we know from the Cracker Barrel story. But the people ripping the new Big 12 logo is making me laugh a little. So maybe we can have someone on down the road to explain why they did that. Big news on the 2311 Front Row Motorsports this week, a ruling in the favor of 2311 and Front Row Motorsports that looks like, while I think both parties do want to try to settle this is moving in favor of the teams against NASCAR. There is a pretrial hearing coming up, so just a lot of news still going on that front.
That's a lot. I don't have nearly as much. Obviously, looking forward to the World Series coming to an end. It's going to go at least 6 games, so that will be fun. And then I want to give a shout out to Joe Gibbs Racing, which has 2 of the 4 drivers in the NASCAR Championship race this weekend in Phoenix. So good luck to Denny Hamlin, especially Chase Briscoe. Christopher Bell just missed out to Kyle Larson. So that's going to be a fun race. I mean, I like the way they've done this. They throw away the points, 4 guys. Whoever finishes ahead of the other 3 wins.
It is interesting, and it's such a change from when you and I started working within NASCAR as to how the champion was crowned. And we're hoping within the next few weeks, coming off of the end of NASCAR season, to be able to get someone on to talk about what all that means, and that's lived through those same changes. So yeah, very, very exciting, and best to them.
Yeah, I don't know about William Byron and Kyle Larson, but I do know that both Denny Hamlin and Chase Briscoe, but in particular, Denny Hamlin has had a lot of success at that Phoenix racetrack.
Well, it's Hendrick versus JGR, right? I mean, it's the 2 powerhouses of the sport.
Yeah, as it should be.
I agree.
Two legendary owners, 2 legendary teams, and 4 fantastic drivers. So we'll call it a show, partner.
Let's do it.
All right. So to all of you who listen, thank you very much. If you like what you see or hear, make sure to comment, follow, subscribe. You can find us at dpandmcgee.com. That will tell you where all our social handles are and where you can get the podcast. want to say especially thank you to you, David, for being so on top of all the social stuff. I am a Luddite when it comes to things like TikTok, but our fans seem to like the content, so thank you.
Well, thank you.
So until next time, he's DP, I'm McGee, and we'll talk soon.